Jai Hind children, welcome back to English online classes. Today we are going to discuss the story The Hack Driver from your supplementary textbook. The story The Hack Driver is about a very cunning manipulator named Oliver Lutkins. It also shows that appearances are often deceptive. Before moving on to the animation and the summary, let's know more about the writer Harry Sinclair Lewis. Harry Sinclair Lewis was an American novelist, short story writer, and a playwright. He is the first American writer to receive the Nobel Prize in Literature. Some of his famous novels are Hike and the Aeroplane, The Job, an American novel, Free Air, etc. Now we'll watch the animated story, The Hack Driver.
After graduating with honors, I became a junior assistant clerk in a magnificent law firm. I was sent not to prepare legal briefs, but to serve summons, like a cheap private detective. I had to go to dirty and shadowy corners of the city to seek out my victims. Some of the larger and more self-confident ones even beat me up. I hated this unpleasant work, and the side of city life it revealed to me. I even considered fleeing to my hometown, where I could have been a real lawyer right away, without going through this unpleasant training period. So I rejoiced one day when they sent me out 40 miles in the country, to a town called New Mullion, to serve summons on a man called Oliver Lutkins. We needed this man as a witness in a law case, and he had ignored all our letters. When I got to New Mullion, my eager expectations of a sweet and simple country village were severely disappointed. Its streets were rivers of mud, with rows of wooden shops, either painted a sour brown, or bare of any paint at all. The only agreeable sight about the place was the delivery man at the station. He was about 40, red-faced, cheerful, and thick about the middle. His working clothes were dirty and well-worn, and he had a friendly manner. You felt at once that he liked people. I want to find a man named Oliver Lutkins.
Lutkins. I saw him around here about an hour ago. Hard fellow to catch though, always up to something or other. He's probably trying to start up a poker game in the back of Fritz's shop. I'll tell you, boy, is there any hurry about locating Lutkins?
Yes, I want to catch the afternoon train back to the city.
I'll tell you what, I've got a hack. I'll get it out and we can drive around together and find Lutkins. I know most of the places he hangs out.
He was so open and friendly that I glowed with the warmth of his affection.
I knew, of course, that he wanted the business, but his kindness was real. I was glad the fair money would go to this good fellow. I managed to bargain down to $2 an hour, and then he brought from his house nearby a sort of large black box on wheels.
Well, young man, here's the carriage.
These villagers are so ready to help a stranger. He had already made it his own task to find Oliver Lutkins for me.
I don't want to interfere, young fellow, but my guess is that you want to collect some money from Lutkins. He never pays anybody a cent. He still owes me 50 cents on a poker game I was fool enough to play with him. He's not really bad, but it's hard to make him part with his money. If you try to collect from him in those fancy clothes, he'll be suspicious and get away from you. If you want, I'll go into Fritz's and ask for him, and you can keep out of sight behind me.
I loved him for this. By myself, I might never have found Lutkins. With the hack driver's knowing help, I was sure of getting my man. I took him into my confidence and told him that I wanted to serve the summons on Lutkins, that the man had refused to be a witness when his information would have quickly settled our case. The driver listened earnestly. At the end, he hit me on the shoulder and laughed.
Well, we'll give Brother Lutkins a little surprise.
Let's start, driver.
Most folks around here call me Bill or Magnuson. My business is called William Magnuson Fancy Carting and Hacking.
All right, Bill. Shall we proceed to Fritz's?
Yes, Lutkins is just as likely to be there as anywhere. Plays a lot of poker. He's good at deceiving people.
Bill seemed to admire Lutkins' talent for dishonesty. I felt that if he had been a policeman, he would have caught Lutkins respectfully and jailed him with regret. Bill led me into Fritz's.
Have you seen Oliver Lutkins around today? Friend of his looking for him.
Yes, he was in here a little while ago. Guess he's gone over to Gustav's to get a shave.
Well, if he comes in, tell him I'm looking for him.
We drove to Gustav's barber shop. Again Bill went in first, and I lingered at the door.
He asked not only the Swede but two customers if they had seen Lutkins.
The Swede had not.
I haven't seen him, and don't care to. But if you find him, you can just collect the $1.35 he owes me.
One of the customers thought he had seen Lutkins walking down Main Street, the side of the hotel. As we climbed back into the hack, Bill concluded that since Lutkins had exhausted his credit at Gustav's, he had probably gone to Gray's for a shave. At Gray's barber shop, we missed Lutkins by only 5 minutes. He had just left, probably for the pool room. At the pool room, it appeared that he had just bought a pack of cigarettes and gone out. So we pursued him, just behind him but never catching him, for an hour till it was past 1 o'clock. I was hungry, but I had so enjoyed Bill's rough country opinions about his neighbors that I scarcely cared whether I found Lutkins or not. How about something to eat? Let's go to a restaurant and I'll buy your lunch.
Well, I ought to go home to the wife. I don't care much for these restaurants, only 4 of them and they're all bad. Tell you what we'll do. We'll get the wife to pack up a lunch for us, she won't charge you more than $50 and it would cost you more for a greasy meal in a restaurant, and we'll go up to Wade's Hill and enjoy the view while we eat.
I know that Bill's helpfulness to the young fellow from the city was not entirely a matter of brotherly love. I was paying him for his time. In the end I paid him for 6 hours, including the lunch hour, at what was then a very high price. But he was no more dishonest than I. I charged the whole thing to the firm. But it would have been worth paying him myself to have his presence.
His cheerful country wisdom was very refreshing to a country boy like me who was sick of the city.
As we sat on the hilltop looking over the pastures and creek which slipped among the trees, he talked of New Mullion, and painted a picture in words of all the people in it. He noticed everything, but no matter how much he might laugh at people, he also understood and forgave their foolishness. He described the minister's wife who sang the loudest in church when she was most in debt.
He commented on the boys who came back from college in fancy clothes.
He told about the lawyer whose wife could never succeed in getting him to put on both a collar and a tie on the same day.
He made them all lie.
On that day I came to know New Mullion better than I did the city and to love it better. Bill didn't know about colleges and cities, but he had traveled around a lot of the country, and had had a lot of jobs. From his adventures he had brought back a philosophy of simplicity and laughter. He strengthened me. We left that peaceful scene of meadows and woods, and resumed our search of Oliver Lutkins. We could not find him. At last Bill cornered a friend of Lutkins and made him admit what he guessed.
Oliver's gone out to his mother's farm 3 miles north.
I know Oliver's mother. She's a terror. I took a trunk out there for her once, and she almost took my skin off because I didn't treat it like a box of eggs. She's about 9 feet tall and 4 feet thick and quick as a cat, and she sure can talk. I'll bet Oliver heard that somebody's chasing him, and he's gone on there to hide behind his mother's skirts. Well, we'll try her. But you'd better let me do it, boy. You may be great at literature and law, but you haven't had real training in swearing.
We drove into a poor farmyard. We were faced by an enormous and cheerful old woman. My guide bravely went up to her and said,
"Remember me. I'm Bill Magnuson, the carter and hackman. I want to find your son, Oliver."
I don't know anything about Oliver, and I don't want to.
Now, look here. We've had just about enough nonsense. This young man represents the court in the city, and we have a legal right to search all properties for this Oliver Lutkins.
Bill made me sound very important, and the woman was impressed. She retired into the kitchen and we followed. She seized an iron from the old-fashioned stove and marched on us shouting.
You search all you want to, if you don't mind getting burnt first.
She shouted and laughed at our frightened retreat.
Let's get out of here. She'll murder us. Did you see her smile? She was laughing at us.
I agreed that it was pretty disrespectful treatment. We did, however, search the house.
Since it was only 1 story high,
Bill went round it, peering in at all the windows. We examined the barn and stable. We were reasonably certain that Lutkins was not there. It was nearly time for me to catch the afternoon train, and Bill drove me to the station. On the way to the city I worried very little over my failure to find Lutkins. I was too busy thinking about Bill Magnuson. Really, I considered returning to New Mullion to practice law. If I had found Bill so deep and richly human, might I not grow to love Fritz and Gustav and 100 other slow-spoken, simple, wise neighbors? I pictured an honest and happy life beyond the strict limits of universities and law firms. I was excited. I had found a treasure. I had discovered a new way of life. But if I did not think much about Lutkins, the office did. I found them all upset. Next morning the case was coming up in the court, and they had to have Lutkins. I was a shameful, useless fool. That morning my promising legal career almost came to an end before it had begun. The chief almost murdered me.
he hinted that I might do well at digging ditches.
I was ordered back to New Mullion, and with me went a man who had worked with Lutkins. I was rather sorry, because it would prevent my loafing all over again with Bill. When the train arrived at New Mullion, Bill was on the station platform, near his cart. Strangely enough, that old tigress, Lutkins' mother, was there talking and laughing with Bill, not quarreling at all.
There's a fine fellow, a real man. I spent the day with him.
He helped you hunt for Oliver Lutkins.
Yes, he helped me a lot.
He must have his Lutkins himself.
What really hurt me was that when I served the summons, Lutkins and his mother laughed at me as though I were a bright boy of 7. With love and kindness, they begged me to go with them to a neighbor's house for a cup of coffee.
I told them about you and they're anxious to look at you. They're about the only folks in the town that missed seeing you yesterday.
The meaning of the word magnificent is glorious, majestic. Legal briefs, a written legal document. Summons means court order. Detective, investigator. Shadowy, dark, unpleasant, horrible. Greasy meal means oily food. Pastures, here it means grassland. Creeks, a stream or minor tributary. Resumed means restart. Retreat, pull back. Poker game is a type of card game. Hack, a horse-drawn vehicle or a horse cart. Hangs out means to spend time doing nothing in particular. Glowed, here it means impressed. Black box on wheels, it refers to the horse cart. Oath, be in debt, an obligation to pay money. Hack driver, the one who drives a horse cart. Lingered, lingered means waited around. Swede, a native or inhabitant of Sweden or a person of Swedish descent. Pool room, a place to play pool, it's a betting shop. Barn, outhouse, or you can say it as a shelter. Stable, a place where a horse is tied up. Hinted, suggest. Digging, to till. So here in this story, in that context, it means to till. Ditches, a drain or trench. Loafing, spend time in idle way. Hunt means search for. Dear children, now I'll give you a short summary of the story, The Hack Driver. The narrator of the story explains that after completing his graduation, he started working with a famous law firm in the city. He was working as an assistant clerk there. He was not very happy with his job of serving summons because sometimes he had to face hard situations while serving them. One day, he got the task of serving summons to Oliver Lutkins, who was a key witness in some case. He lived in a small town named New Mullion. The narrator was very excited to visit a small and beautiful town, but his excitement ended by the dull appearance of the town. He saw a hack driver standing at the platform who was very cheerful and nice. He went up to him and inquired about Oliver Lutkins as he was new to the town and wanted to find him. The driver told him that Oliver was a nasty man who owed debt to many people. He also cunningly extracted information from the lawyer that he needed Lutkins for some court case. A deal was cracked between both. He decided to hire Bill's hack and go on a search for Lutkins. Bill somehow traps the lawyer in his story and they visit different places in search of Lutkins. He always asks the lawyer stay behind. They go to Frizz's to catch Lutkins while playing poker. But he tells them that he has gone to Gustav for a shave. At Gustav's, they weren't able to meet him and were told that someone saw him at the pool room. Here also, somebody said that he left the pool room after buying cigarettes. Bill described Lutkins as a cunning man and guessed that he must have gone to Grace for a shave. In the afternoon, Bill offered him to buy lunch from his wife as it would be less costly than at the restaurant. They had lunch at Wade's Hill, which was a very beautiful place. By that time, the clerk was totally impressed by Bill's nice and cheery nature. He had even started comparing village people to city people. Later on, they went to search for Lutkins at his mother's house on the basis of information derived from one of his friends. There the lady was horrible and they hurriedly left the place as she was about to attack them with a hot iron rod. At last, the lawyer had to leave without serving summons to Lutkins. Next day, he was scolded badly by his chief and was again sent to Mullion with a companion who knew Lutkins. Upon reaching the station, the clerk happily pointed out that Bill was such a helpful person to him, searched Lutkins. At this time, the truth was revealed by his companion that the hack driver was none other than Lutkins himself. The clerk felt so bad and ashamed of how he had been fooled by a villager. How's the story? Did you like it? Now, let me ask you some questions. Do you think Lutkins was right in befooling the lawyer and earning money by using unfair means? What precautions should one take to avoid a situation like the one in which the lawyer was placed?
May I, ma'am? Lutkins was not right in befooling the lawyer and earning money by using unfair means. This shows that Lutkins did not care for the law at all. If we are in the lawyer's place, we should not believe in things as they are seen. We should judge every action taken by the other person carefully before accepting it. Instead of depending on others, we should carry out our inquiries ourselves. The lawyer was befooled because he let Lutkins do the finding and questioning and did not do anything himself. This resulted in his failure to serve the summons on Lutkins.
Now, can anyone tell what really hurt the feelings of the narrator?
The narrator was under the impression that the country people were honest, simple and helpful. Such impression made him gullible because he was easily befooled by the hack driver who himself was Oliver Lutkins. The narrator was hurt when Lutkins and his mother laughed at him. He felt like a fool who was easily coaxed into believing that Lutkins was someone else whereas Lutkins was with him the whole day. He felt really shameful on his act and realized that he should have done his homework more carefully about finding out the details of Oliver Lutkins.
Appearances are often deceptive. Can you comment on this statement in the light of this story?
Things are not always what they seem to be. Appearances are often deceptive. The narrator reaches a village in the search of Oliver Lutkins. He meets a hack driver at the station. The driver warns him about Lutkins. He takes him on a tour of the entire village in search of Lutkins. He tells the narrator about his experiences and about the village and its people. The narrator likes him for his helpful and kind nature. He even forgets all about Lutkins. But the next day he finds out that the hack driver was Oliver Lutkins himself. He realizes that a simple and kind person was a trickster in reality.
Can anyone explain the character sketch of the hack driver?
The narrator happened to meet the hack driver on reaching New Mullion. He was Lutkins himself. When he came to know the purpose of the narrator's visit, he offered help in finding Lutkins at a charge of £2 per hour. He was a red-faced, 40-year-old man having a cheerful and pleasant personality. The lawyer liked him at the first look. He was fun-loving and jolly. He played a practical joke on the lawyer. When he came to know that he did not identify Lutkins, he introduced himself as Bill. He was neither honest nor helpful. He was rather clever. He charged him for the lunch hour and the food that he got from his wife. But he was creative, humorous and witty. He portrayed the people of New Mullion in an entertaining and humorous manner reflecting his cheerful wisdom.
Now, can you give the character sketch of the lawyer?
The lawyer was a fresh graduate from a university. He got a job as a junior assistant clerk in a law firm. His duty was to serve the summons. He did not like his job. He liked simple, honest and friendly people. He got very happy when he was asked to go to New Mullion. He loved natural beauty. He liked New Mullion and its people very much. He considered starting his law practice at New Mullion. He was a simple-hearted man. He was easily taken for a ride by the hack driver. He could not see the trick of the hackman behind his friendly behavior. But he was a man of self-respect. His feelings were hurt when Lutkins and his mother laughed at him as he was a bright boy of 7 years.
That's all for you today. We'll meet the next day with another lesson.